Piss off the wrong people and they send you to jail. Piss off the right people and they tell you you're charming. I said, how come we never kiss when we're sober? And he said, Mary, you ask too many questions. I hope I'm never satisfied. Yeah, I hope I'm never satisfied. And it feels so good to be misunderstood. It feels so good to be misunderstood. It feels so good to be misunderstood. Yeah, it feels so good. Yeah, it feels so good.
Oh, damn. Oh, that was a little much.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to A-Cups, our winter session. We are Anne and Angela, and we are a podcast, and each week we invite a guest and discuss ways feminism intersects with pop culture and art. And this week we have famous new media artist joining us from Toronto, Jeremy Bailey.
Hello. That doesn't sound very famous. I mean, hello.
Ooh,
That was
radio
very
voice.
famous sounding.
So, like we do every week, we always start with a warm-up topic. This week, I was thinking, since we have this very famous new media artist, probably the most famous new media artist that we've ever had on the show.
Besides ourselves.
Besides ourselves.
Yeah, probably.
There's a lot of famous celebrities in the entertainment industry that seem to be interested in gaining fame in the new media art world recently. We're talking Kanye West Bound 2 video, projecting his face onto buildings, Lady Gaga and her costumes and performance art interest, Jay-Z at Pace, James Franco, Rihanna and the C-Punk thing.
Yeah.
You've worked so hard to become a famous new media artist.
Yeah.
How do you feel about these people, like, encroaching on your territory?
How do I feel? Well, yeah, when you brought that question to my attention earlier, I could only think of James Franco, and then I kept thinking of legit people like David Lynch and stuff. But the people that you mentioned, definitely, that's better examples. I think it's good. I think it's great. I don't know. This is a terrible answer already.
It's great. I'm for it.
I'm all for. I think it's good in that. You know, the same way maybe Marina Abramovic is good for bringing attention to mainstream culture. I remember actually
like taking art into the celebrity realm.
Yeah, there's like a really good story that that's about me, which is that like I had a really hard time explaining myself to my family for many years, and then like all of a sudden one year like Lady Gaga arrived, and they're like, "Oh, you're like Lady Gaga." And I was like. Yeah, I'm just like that. That's my deal. that's what I do.
So you're happy that these pop stars have essentially brought art to the mainstream, that have made like what we do more accessible to everyone else.
Yeah, like they could understand it because I'm terrible at marketing what I do, right? Like apparently.
Are you really?
I try so damn hard. But yeah. So I think it just makes it easier to. I hate to use the word consume, but like it's easier to understand, I guess. And that's been really. No, it hasn't really been helpful, actually. It's changed. I work the same amount or more. But it makes conversation with family easier at Thanksgiving or something.
Because you can sort of bring it into their language.
Yeah, and then I have a project where I take over women's bodies and they're my slaves and they're these telepresent slaves. This sounds really controversial, but everyone's like, literally people will yell out on the streets like, it's Lady Gaga. In some ways I don't like that she's taking credit for what I'm doing, but in other ways it's good that like they're smiling and they're super excited that this exists.
Yeah.
And they're not like, who's that freak who's taking over women's bodies and with iPads on their faces. So that's kind of cool, I think.
So you're not interested in the fucked up controversial response, or like
like am I do I think it's problematic? Is that what you're saying?
Or no, are you interested? I guess you're saying it's like helpful to you that people aren't having that response. Like what?
Oh yeah.
Would it
well,
be
in that case, because I am actually
did?
trying to push. I am trying to push buttons. Usually, once they get closer, I've had several encounters with that project in particular. Yeah, because I'm trying. It is intentionally controversial. Mm-hmm. Where they get that, but after I've had a conversation with, or after they realize the whole thing. But their initial impulse, like and it's the same reason I use comedy in my work.
Yeah, it's like an icebreaker.
Yeah, it's an icebreaker. It's a way to talk about, without being rhetorical, difficult issues in a non-patronizing way, in a way that's more easily approachable, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that helps, I think. So if Jay-Z wants to, like, help me out, maybe, like, tweet at Jeremy Bailey.
Yeah. Jay-Z, because you're obviously listening with your art world interests, because we are obviously the most interesting podcast in the art world.
Yeah, or if Kenyon, wants to do a collab.
I think we decided we were the most interesting podcast in the art world.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said earlier.
Yeah,
that's what I said. Yeah.
There's no other one.
Jeremy Bailey certified. Most interesting art podcast.
You guys have got to listen to this more often. Give these girls all your support because they're awesome.
Jay-Z.
So maybe, Jeremy, you can just tell people who you are, what you do, for anyone who isn't familiar with your work.
Yeah, I know. Despite the famous meme title, famous new media artist, probably 99.9. Well, I don't know. No one knows who I am. Though I am spotted often in New York, which I think makes me feel famous. Like, I got a tweet yesterday. I'm on Twitter, which makes me famous. But it was someone that had seen me at, like, I mentioned earlier, on the L train, and they're like, they didn't say hello to me, and I was like, and then they tweeted like, I didn't say hello to you because I wanted to give you your private space. and I was like, no, you should have, because I was with my brother and he doesn't think I'm famous, and he would have told my mom that I'm famous in New York or something. Which is, like, only true for, like, the small community. The other reason I came up with that, like, title, famous new media artist, is because, it's a joke in and of itself. It, like, both describes what I'm trying to do, and but also is, like, self-effacing, and that, like, new media art is the most marginalized. It's like it's the very point of the triangle in terms of, like, popularity. And popular sort of perception, which maybe goes back to the celebrity thing. So, there's no way possible. I think even if I was a famous new media artist, I'd only be famous in, like, among the slightest, like, niche, like, sliver of the world, probably in South Korea or something like that. I'm famous in South Korea. They play video games there professionally as sports and watch my videos all day long.
I was going to say, everybody at Flux Factory, when I said we were talking to you tonight, they were like, ooh, new media artist Jeremy Bailey. So they knew, but they're part of the sliver that you're talking about. Yeah, it has a nice ring to it.
Yeah. Everyone I know knows who you are. And if they don't, I'm not friends with them.
Oh, shit. Line in the sand. Do you know Jeremy Bailey or don't you? Well, all right. That was a fast description of your practice.
Well, I didn't even talk about my work. It's like, I'm just a tagline.
You should talk about what you do.
Yeah, what I do is, I play this character, famous new media artist Jeremy Bailey. So I'm not really in character right now, though I do tend to slip in and out of it. And what he is this sort of, like, naive, like, narcissistic new media artist who believes that technology can sort of save the world. And he tries to solve the world's problems with technology and creativity, sort of a critique of cultural capital and just new media art in general, which is, like, this long history of sort of being technology first without considering the consequences, or the critical consequences especially. And so he puts himself in that, like, tense area and makes a lot of mistakes. And in so doing, I think, endears himself to his audience. And what I do, I typically publish my work as YouTube videos, but I have other performances that I do live, and I just mentioned that, like, sort of slave performance, which is out in the public realm. But typically as sort of a YouTube monologue style video, which is familiar, I think a familiar format now, where, like, someone just talks to you about
But when
bullshit.
You were first doing it, it wasn't... Well, we're gonna talk about that.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was like an emergent category. And I know there are, like, people that get millions and millions of views for just like sharing, like, their top 5 movie picks for the week or whatever that way. And maybe I should do that. But instead, I demo software that I think is going to save the world, or solve a problem.
You get a lot of hits, though.
Well, like, relatively speaking to the art world, is that
what you're
relative to the art world hits.
Yeah, I get art world hits. And it, like, but I've been doing it for like 10 years of doing it. Like, well, how long has YouTube been around for? Like,
you
since
have
2005.
been doing it longer than YouTube.
Yeah, I was doing it before YouTube, and I had a few viral hits. That's what kills me. Before YouTube, I had a video that was like on Boing Boing, all this stuff, and I would get hate mail to my inbox, not just the comments. It would like real mail and emails and stuff where people were like, calling me names and stuff.
Do you still get that?
In YouTube comments, but it's actually more and more disappointing. Like, the more slightly recognizable I get, the nicer the comments are.
Yeah.
Like, people are afraid that if they, like, I don't know what it is, actually. Maybe they're afraid if they burn me or something, or they're mean, that I'll know who they are.
They think that you're, like, people really love authenticity, and they love to, like, they just have strong feelings. Like, so when they think you're, like, authentic, then they can either, like, vehemently hate you or love you. But when you become, like, established in some way, then it's like, oh,
they're
whatever.
Worried. Yeah. Well, the other thing is, I think, YouTube's great for that. But I used to, it was more like trolling a little bit, and I was playing with that. And the comments would always be like, they would take my project sincerely, which I really loved. And regretted not replying to them, but I just couldn't. I love just seeing like people replying to each other in the comments and being like, no, dude, it's like not for real. No, it totally is. And I still meet people that think, like, I'll meet even artists, and I'll meet them on this, for the first time in IRL or whatever, and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe you're a nice guy, or like, you're not at all crazy, because I was talking to this other guy the other day, and he was like, he's so crazy. He's the insane guy. So some people still think it's real, which is kind of cool, I think.
So they just assume you're like an egomaniac.
Yeah, exactly.
Or just like a wacky, truly weirdo person.
But honestly, I kind of am, and I think like you guys are too.
Kind of.
Yeah.
But and I've always said it's sort of just a caricature of myself, or myself like as a young man, because I think we're in your early 20s or late teens, you're kind of always that person. Yeah. That's when I first became reflective and started to build the character as like, oh, I'm like total asshole kind of guy, like I realized who I was, and then I packaged that. It's like, oh, that's good. That's good material.
Let's mark it up.
Let's do something with that.
It's so interesting, because I feel like the men that I know that are the most sensitive, kind men are the men that channel the asshole in their art, and like Jeremy, Nate, Nathaniel,
even like Alex too, to a degree.
Yeah, like all these like men that I like fucking am obsessed with and love. Like the good ones are like the ones who are like channeling that like asshole persona in their art, because I guess they feel like they can, and they can separate themselves from it in a way. Yeah,
I mean, maybe it's also an outlet. Because I need to get it out there. Yeah. But I doubt that as much as it's like just. Because like I said earlier, I don't like to be rhetorical, so it's a chance for me to work through issues that I find really complicated.
Well, that's like with Nate Hill as well, and we were talking about that earlier, that he is like working through all his like desires and bad parts of himself through these projects.
But he doesn't describe it as a performance persona. He describes it as an extension of himself, which I think is an interesting distinction.
But I think it's related to what Jeremy's saying. He's
I think so too. But Jeremy is saying like, oh, there's like
boundaries.
Jeremy, the famous new media artist, and Jeremy on the street, friendly guy.
But I have to say, like, even though that's true, there's this like spectrum in between. That, it's kind of like when you're talking to a friend, you say something and it's like you shouldn't have said that. You're like, oh, just kidding. But I do, on the like official work that I do, I'm very self-conscious, and I spend a lot of time sort of researching and thinking about the best way to frame things. And like that slavery project in particular, which I think is very, should be, like, I'm surprised more people don't, that I've put it in front of, haven't been more, haven't confronted me about it. I spent like a year researching and making sure that I felt confident in the framework behind it, and because it should be. Do you want to just talk about that project a little more, because I'm interested in hearing you speak about it? Yeah, sure. So I was in Liverpool doing a residency for a year. It was 3 months that I spread out over a year, and Liverpool. When I started to research, I make work in context. I guess just to start by saying, like, a while ago I decided that the best way to make artwork for me was to perform the act of making artwork. So my character sort of like goes somewhere, and then like the performance itself is like the act of making the work. So that sounds kind of pretentious, but it's actually for me the only way. Like, it's my head game that I play with myself. And I'm like, what would Jeremy do in this situation? So Jeremy arrived, or famous new media artist Jeremy Bailey arrived in Liverpool, and he sort of did his research and discovered that it was the sort of the center of the slavery economy. It was actually like when slavery was hot or whatever, economically speaking. All the money, like all slavery sort of passed through Liverpool, and it was like the center or the point of a trade triangle with the Americas and Africa. And manufacturing and the Industrial Revolution in the UK was sort of based around that. And a lot of economies sort of all ended up in Liverpool, and Liverpool profited tremendously from it. And everyone was involved in like investing in slave ships and slavery. And including like just like people down the street, like your mom and dad might have like stocks in a it'd be like, because that's like, it would be like the hot IPO, like an internet stock. Like, did you get any of that?
Google or something.
Yeah, exactly. Which sounds like terribly offensive, and it is, but like that was the normalization of it. If we were going to talk about, how people do crazy things. And one of the companies though that made a lot of money from that was the Tate and Lyle Sugar Company, which of course, like sugar cane, makes sense. Like sugar's being processed in Liverpool and obviously like harvested in the West Indies and Americas and stuff. And they were getting slave labor from Africa. And Tate and Lyle Sugar Company went on to become the Tate, which is like the sort of museum system in the UK, which I think is cool that they were able to like turn something so negative into something so positive. And like great PR, like they somehow escaped that history. And the Tate was founded in Liverpool, actually. The original Tate is the Tate Liverpool. And so I was researching that, and then I was trying to solve a problem because my character, he goes in and solves problems, and the problem that was presented to me by the institution I was working with, which is FACT, which is a great new media arts center in Liverpool. If anyone's listening, they are a tremendous organization. If anyone's listening,
anyone's here.
This famous art podcast. Obviously, people are listening.
Yeah, you should check it out if you're in Liverpool. And they're really supportive of artists, and they like can kind of develop. Very few institutions like sort of help produce artwork, and they're one of the few that still do that. And for young artists too, like myself.
Rhizome, shout out.
Yeah, Rhizome's another one. I would say like one of the most important ones in my life as an artist. But anyway, FACT's another one of those. And they had a problem where they, like I wanted to solve a problem for them, which I said, what are your problems? And I interviewed everyone in the organization and I used this design thinking approach, which is IDEO. I don't know if you know like what design thinking is. It's the Stanford model for product design. I use it to like make artwork. I won't go into that because it's a whole separate podcast. But the problem they were having is that they wanted like to invigilate is like to be a docent or to get gallery guide an entire festival. Like they wanted to bring awareness to the festival and like have some kind of like layer of augmentation that would like explain the whole festival to people. And then I was just like looking at how the history of invigilation. This is a really long answer. Is this going to take up the whole show?
Just keep
going.
I was looking at the history of invigilation and docentry, and really, like if you look, if you look at a museum, that role is very diminished. It's like it's hidden. It's usually like a young woman who's like sort of in the corner or something,
or worse
yet, it's like in some cases in the United States, it's like, and certain artists have already dealt with this. It's like a racial minority.
Right.
And they're sort of this diminished figure that's kind of supposed to be invisible, but there when you need them as the audience, kind of thing. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be interesting to empower that role? And I was looking at other methods or like tools for empowerment that were out in the world, and there was this there's this trend towards like these I guess telepresent robots for managers. So if you're like a high performing manager and you're in New York, but you have to be at the office meeting in Tokyo and in Paris, you can like send your robot like to the meeting and like
wait, like a robot that looks like a person.
It's like a Segway with an iPad on top.
No,
and they're really funny because they
can't just Skype them in. They have to have a physical presence.
Yeah, they have to have like a physical presence. But the hilarious thing in terms of the product design is that these things are like shorter than average. Like they're like 4'7", so 4'7" or something, or 5 foot. That's a very precise number, 4'7". But anyway, they're shorter than the average sort of like protagonist male ego.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of hilarious to look at product shots. Like maybe we can link to this or something, but I'll send you some pictures of like, groups of people like smiling, looking down at this like manager character, because it's the opposite sort of image that you're used to seeing where the manager is concerned, and sort of smiling at like a little baby kind of cutely.
Oh my God.
So I thought if I took that technology and like applied that to this docentry and then brought my ego to gallery guide, docentry, whatever, invigilation, every country has a different word for it, that would be like this empowering but simultaneously disempowering, because it was like a mistake, right? The empowerment is like the drone kind of connection where it's like the American military. God, this is the other tangent. The American military sends drones to Pakistan, not humans, and like drones are this symbol of strength and like no one's going to get hurt in empowerment. So like for me to take over this drone, God, this is getting so long, but this like
no, it's great.
This telepresent robot as a guide, I could be like everywhere at once. I could go into like the deepest, darkest corners of the city, the seedy neighborhoods. I could bring new media art and like gallery guide information to the streets. Yeah, I bring it to you. And for me, that was really important as an artist anyway, because I'm it's like a campaign I'm on to try and get out of the dark room at the back gallery, at the back of the gallery, which is like where new media and video art, which I come from, is always, it's like the broken computer at the back of
I was just looking through the Beyond in Western New York catalog from 2010, I guess, and your bathroom.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I started the Jeremy Bailey New Media Institute in the bathrooms of Western New York galleries, And that was because it was like, they were like, Jeremy, you've already been in this biennial, so, we can give you carte blanche, but you can't show in any of the galleries. And I was like, but I need a space. And they're like, well, any other space but the gallery space. I was like, well, can I have like a broom closet or a bathroom? They're like, sure, yeah, you could have them all. And so thus was born.
You can have all the dark corners that are undesirable.
Yeah, and it was really funny because people... I had lots of conversations, which is really what I was seeking, like this like public interface that you would never have in the gallery space, because the gallery space is so pretentious. But I would also have like, someone, I'd be having like an intellectual conversation with them, but they had come in there to like do their business. So they would like turn away from me and like walk up to the urinal, or worse, like close the door, like a thing. And it was at times quite disturbing, but it was fun.
Nice. Well, I guess I should try and get into these questions.
Oh, yeah,
so that we can actually...
Because I could just run... Do you want me to run a show? I could just like, go off on a monologue.
Well, so, I mean, we already got into this a little bit, but I wanted to say I really admire your sort of early 2000s videos where it seemed like you were developing the artist persona that you use now. And I really admire the vulnerability that you display in those performances for video, and they seem to criticize overt masculinity, like in Strongest Man, the World Trade Center Memorial, which I really, really enjoy. Worthless Human, Don't Mess Around. And so I was just wondering how this performance character developed.
Yeah, because all of those works are sort of performative from a persona standpoint. I guess they're performative, but there's no persona. And that was sort of me, grappling with the same issues, but I hadn't really thought of the persona angle yet. But it was all the same stuff that I was interested in. I was really concerned with technology first media art, and I was obsessed with that essentially. But I come from a video art background, so I was most like aware of like 1970s performance video, and that was what I knew, like, and I still know, like, back to front, in and out kind of thing. And so I was emulating, I think, a lot of the gestures that were present in that time. And what's really interesting about that period is there's a real, obviously, self-reflectivity and reflexivity, if you will, of all of the artists working at that time. And because it's the first time they've ever seen their face on this consumption device, the TV. So they're being critical of all of the things that have just been sort of forced down their eyeballs up until that point. It's the chance to talk back, which for me, and when video on the internet became a thing, I was like, holy moly. That's the 1970s. We're having that right now, but for everyone, like the whole world gets to be the 1970s. That happened in like 2002, 2003, 2004, 2005. Really 2005 when YouTube hits. That's when the world gets to experience what was the most vibrant period, I think, in contemporary art, video art in the 1970s, when like everyone was doing it, including like Richard Serry's like, no, forget about that steel stuff. I'm just going to make videos. Kind of thing. I don't care that I grew up in a shipyard or whatever.
Wait, what's the video where you're like, do you love me now? Is that what you say? Or do you understand me? What's the word that you
Full
say?
effect, yeah.
Yeah, what's the phrase that you use, though?
Well, it's like,
do you understand me now?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that video, that's really, for me, very ahead of its time.
Oh.
So there's a video where Jeremy is in front of the camera in kind of a selfie-type pose. And you're overlaying, you're like, I want you to understand my emotions.
Different filters,
I want you to understand me and my emotions, so I'm going to put all these filters on top of me so that you understand me. And so he gradually applies more and more filters to his face, and the more filters he applies, he says, do you understand me now? Do you understand me now? And it just gets more and more desperate and crazy the more filters and crazy filters he applies.
Until my face is erased. But the true story is I had broken up with my girlfriend. And like she just wasn't listening. And our relationship had been reduced to a Skype relationship because I was in grad school in Syracuse and she was living in Toronto. It's pretty sad. But then I actually thought people would think it was funny, like because it was.
It is funny
because it was so sappy, and I pushed it so over the top. But I guess it's like Instagram or something now.
I mean, I think that video.
Do you feel me now? Do you feel me?
Yes, do you feel me now? It's just like so anticipated this like emo narcissistic culture.
I was an emo kid, or that's what people would have labeled me, and you know, since then there's been other labels attached to my type of guy, but I was definitely like an emo kid. I had black hair with bangs and stuff like that.
Oh yes, I remember that.
Oh yeah, like in the Strongest Man video.
Yeah.
The comments on that are pretty interesting.
Well, that was the video I was talking about that was actually viral before YouTube.
Yeah.
And viral in the sense that it had like more views than I've ever had since then. It was like 1 million views or something like that.
Oh my god.
But
pre-YouTube, that's insane.
Yeah.
That's insane.
Actually, Syracuse ended up hosting that video, the university where I went to grad school, because my servers, I was like, it was costing me a fortune to have that video on. Because back then, like there was no service to host your video. And most artists, by the way, back then used to upload like, I feel like I'm like this old man. Back then,
back in my day,
you would have like a tiny, you know, like this tiny thumbnail QuickTime with like a watermark, like do not duplicate on top of it, because people were trying to monetize video, and you know, they didn't want people to see it or something. Like you can see a taste.
Well, it's like artificial scarcity. So
I was just so not about that, because the history that I had been taught, you know, the post-1970s video art history was about distribution and cable access and stuff. And I was like, wait, you guys have, like, the video art community that might have existed now has this mechanism for mass distribution.
Right.
And you want to, like, you're not taking advantage of it? That's crazy. I'm going to go whole hog into this thing, so...
Does that ever affect, I mean, maybe this is a question that you can't answer, but does that ever affect your relationship with your gallerist? Is your gallerist ever like, can you not put the full-length video on your website?
Yeah, no, like very early on I told her that was essential, because that's the core value, context. Yeah. What I would like to be able to sell is just the YouTube context is the most real place for it. That's what I would like to sell, though I don't know how to do that. So she's got to figure that out. We're actually working on that right now. Because she's had trouble like selling me, period. I think I haven't made things easy for her. But to her credit, she's very gracious. She's never forced me to do anything that I didn't want to do. And,
like specifically for sales.
Yeah, and as such, I've made almost $0.
Awesome. Woo!
Yeah.
So I'm going to move on to my question.
It's fine.
So about a month ago, or I don't know, a couple weeks ago, whatever. Sorry, I burped.
You want some muscle milk? I'm drinking muscle milk, by the way.
Cookies and cream
This
muscle.
podcast, powered by muscle milk.
Contains no milk.
So about a month ago, I tweeted, quote, "Not techie enough for the tech people, too nerdy for the art people," end quote. which was kind of me commenting on the slickness of the real quote-unquote art world versus the nerdiness of the quote-unquote new media world. And just like my sense that I didn't really feel like I belonged in either of those places. And I feel like our practices are very, very similar. Just so everyone knows, Jeremy is actually a huge reason why I ended up attending Syracuse University. I saw his work when I was applying, and I thought he was fucking amazing. And I was like, I would go to the school where Jeremy.
Told me that.
That's so
I never told you
sweet.
that.
How come I'm not getting checks from Syracuse?
Ask Tom.
No, they treated me well.
Yeah. But yeah, so you're a big reason why I went to Syracuse and a big inspiration for me and my work. So this thing that I'm talking about, like being in between these two places, is this something that you deal with as well? And how have you been able to navigate between or not been able to navigate between these two worlds?
I mean,
pretty
for me,
techie.
yeah, I'm pretty techie. Yeah, no,
But you're arty too.
I'm pretty arty. But what what I've always said, the advice that I've always given to young students, inspired young minds like yourself,
Like me. Yeah.
is that whatever you consider your biggest weaknesses, you should package that and turn those into your strengths. And so very early on, my strategy was like, okay, if I'm the nerdy guy, I'm really going to be the nerdy guy. But I'm going to be like the nerdy guy that's aware of his nerdiness and use that like as my superpower or something. So I never feel that way. You know, I think just occupying the category, such a crass term, that we're in, in the art world, where we live in the art world, I guess in that world, I'm also probably more nerdy. Like, I'm not like the cool guy. I'm not going to name names, but I'm definitely not the cool guy. But I'm sincerely or authentic in some ways. Like, I'm not pretending to be someone I'm not, or I'm not trying to do something that I don't believe in. So I feel good about that. At the end of the day, I can sleep well at night.
You're doing better than me.
You can't sleep well at night?
No, I sleep pretty good.
I feel
No,
like
you're
I
doing
struggle
fantastic.
with your question. Like, I feel like, I don't know, because like you're saying, taking this like supposed weakness and making it what I mean, being like a closet gamer for a long time, and just starting to make work about games, but then like,
and there's a huge audience for that type of a person, though.
Yeah.
You realize that, right?
yeah, no, I found that out all of a sudden.
Girl
Yeah,
who
it
games.
was like,
Yeah.
well, yeah, in that way as well, but I feel like, I don't know, because I'm not a programmer, there does end up being like a kind of criticism about like, oh, you're making games about, or work about games, you have to make games. And then I'm a little bit like, well, I think eventually I probably will make a game, but I don't know. The not techie enough.
But even after
to-
Red versus Blue and like machinima culture sort of blew up, I mean, I know it's a geek subculture, but it's a huge geek subculture.
Yeah, definitely. But I think in certain contexts, especially in conferences with people who make indie games, like radical indie games, they're sort of like, yeah, okay. We change the games industry. What are you doing?
Oh, and I
You
think
know?
also in that context, the like contemporary artist is like taking something that's fun and trying to make it difficult and
serious.
pretentious. And
Yeah,
serious.
totally.
Oh, why you're like, it's such a drag.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think I do like, if you're like the nerdy guy, then I'm like the awkward girl or something like that. So I definitely like do try and embrace that, but it's still just like,
I mean, Amy Sedaris turned that into a whole career. Like, you can do it. I honestly, when you said you were inspired by me, I told you before I came out here that I mention you in every talk I ever give, because you're like a true landmark. This is like, actually, the show is just about the host and the guests complimenting each other. But you were one of the few people that was self-reflective and about the context that you were in, with the scandalicious stuff, if the audience doesn't know, I guess, and portrayed a cam girl for like a year, and you did like, was it daily or weekly performances? But
there was like 100.
Like 100 performances, and you racked up like millions of views, and whether or not, again, it was trolling, maybe that's another question that we could talk about.
I think
or the question of authenticity.
I think other people have said it is troll. Like, I know Jennifer Chan has context the work in that way, but I never thought of it in that way.
But I don't actually think of trolling as a negative word, because if you put trolling in like the art world context, like if you just like, all art is trolling, because it's like I'm trying to
Just
get a
like
reaction here,
poke,
guys.
poke,
Yeah.
poke.
Exactly.
Look at me, look at me.
If you solicit, if you elicit a reaction, I guess you could say you're soliciting a reaction. That especially with that,
that's trolling.
It's trolling, and that's what all good art does, essentially.
Cool. We can move on to the next
All
question.
right, we'll move on. I have another question about tweets. In October, you tweeted, "I'm thinking." Oh, and I dig back for this because I remembered.
You do your research.
Yeah, I'm thinking of starting an art prize exclusively for famous female new media artists. £1,000 yearly prize to start. More if there's interest.
Is that all I said? Because
that is all you said.
I mean, it was a tweet, so
yeah. And then later, you and your wife actually also recently proposed a dream exhibition called Female New Media Artist Memorial. So are you starting an art prize, and why champion female new media artists?
Yeah, so I am going to do it. That's like my big project for 2014.
Yay!
But I'm still in sort of the research phase and partnering phase, because I think I want to do it as quickly as possible, because I don't want to just talk about it. I want to do it. And the time is right to do something like that. And why is the time right? I think, like, as an artist, I've been performing this character and my mission has been really to destroy this sort of like techno, like white male ego kind of guy that
that's
portray.
your word.
Yeah. Techno, I guess more tech-centric.
Techno.
He's not techno. I sound like my mom describing myself. He's like a techno radio geek guy. But the time is sort of right, I think I was saying earlier, for some kind of affirmative action on the part of, not just women, which I think are doing a fantastic job right now, case in point, but also men. And so what I can do, this is something that I can do, and it can be, and it works with my character anyway, which is awesome, I think. He's really just trying to make a difference sincerely. And if it goes wrong, I kind of have a cover for that. But I also believe in it as a person, as a real human being. And I think that it would be just such a cool thing to do. And even, with this memorial that I proposed on AFC, it's been great because there's you can submit your famous female new media artist that's gone unrecognized to hold back. What is it? Did I say? I kind of forgotten the email address. Fight back the tears at jeremybailey.net. Fight back the tears at jeremybailey.net.
Oh goodness.
But it's a chance to recognize, people, because there are all these contemporaries that we all know and love that a lot of people don't know about. But then there's a generation of women that are also forgotten from history books and so forth, or not, haven't been legitimized at the same level as men. And I just think that that's really shitty. So it's a small thing that I could do, and I think a good tax write-off ultimately.
Aha.
Yes.
Ulterior motives.
There's always an ulterior motive. No, I actually even talked to my accountant about it, and
he was like, "Great idea."
No, I haven't talked to him.
You have to.
Yeah, I have to probably. My
You have an
gallerist
accountant?
is actually.
My goodness.
Yeah, he's a family friend.
Mine is turbotax.com.
Yeah.
So you're one of the first. I think you might be the first male artist that I can think of among the current crop of post-internet, and I say that with air quotes, artists who really embraced using yourself in your work. You're a performer. I think that I can think of many more now who are doing it, but when you were making your videos in the mid-2000s, no men were really presenting themselves like you were. Although, certainly as we just discussed, there's a strong history of men performing in video and performance art. But it kind of feels different now that we're, the kind of internet thing that we're talking about versus them doing it on video. Because, now these images become disseminated so widely, and also because they become so actually intermixed with our social media presences. So I'm wondering, how did it feel to be... Okay, I'm going to back up. Okay, I know how it felt to be a cam whore in 2008, a female cam whore in 2008. I'm wondering, how did it feel, and you did briefly discuss this with the people who emailing you, how did it feel to be a male cam whore in 2004 or 2005 or even now? Have you gotten negative feedback from being narcissistic? Or is this just a problem that women face? It seems like it's not because of what you said. And I feel like I started to take myself out of my work. Do you ever see yourself taking yourself out of your work?
Okay, so the first part of the question that I did answer earlier, but
Yeah.
it bears repeating. I think, it's the same thing existed then as it did now, but it was just like way more personal. Actually,
Yeah,
I don't know
yeah.
if like people were more political on the internet. There was just like less stuff to be angry about, but I got like a lot more negative feedback.
Yeah.
Tons, and I found that like the best possible response. I knew I was doing something right. I don't know if someone
Yeah.
told me that you're doing something right when people get angry, but I got a lot of like all caps messages. Some really obviously like hateful stuff. And what was really interesting to me as an artist, and I think this is true for my entire identity and life ultimately, is that they were identifying me as like a non-heterosexual man, so that they were typically calling me faggot or
Right.
being really
That's what I would imagine.
yeah. And then like for me it became really important to like embrace that and confuse and make that identity more ambiguous, because I felt like, oh my God, if they're saying this to me, like, imagine a person that this is really hurting. Like, it was making me feel powerful in some way that I was getting that reaction. That sounds kind of weird, but I just felt like I had to go even further in that direction, I suppose, and really fully experience it. And then it made me much more empathetic toward all of these other people that were out there trying to sincerely, put stuff out into the world, and they must be getting comments like that every day. Yeah. And of course I have two gay siblings, and it's been a big part of my upbringing to see them struggle and feel frustrated with every decision that they make. They're always second guessing, well, did they treat me differently because I'm not like them? And so that kind of bullying is very present online, and it's in recent news, but it was around back then. It was like actually
But there was no awareness about it.
Yeah,
no discussion.
You didn't really
No
hear people
discussion.
talking about it.
Yeah.
But like it was like some horrendous stuff, like death threat kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
me too.
Really, you had death threats? That's great.
I mean, I got die in a fire, Anne Frank.
Oh my God.
Like repeatedly.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
But the more of that I got, actually, and maybe this is like because I'm not that. Maybe it's because I'm not that person. The more of it I got, the more comfortable I got with it.
That's what I always say too.
And then once I was comfortable with it, I never felt better about myself, because I was very self-conscious about myself growing up. Because when I was younger, people thought I was a girl, and my mom really thought I was gay, and I was like, well, and I have no girlfriend. And I was in no position to complain, and I'm not complaining about it. But it did have an effect on my confidence. So when it was finally like just like transparent to me what people were thinking all the time, I was like, oh, this is kind of awesome, because I can like now use this as material, and like I can kind of manipulate reaction, and I'm in control, and that was really exciting. I guess that's my answer.
I mean, I think I went through a similar thing where at first I was like horrified, and then I was like, no, first I was like, this is amazing. This is amazing. And then I was like horrified. And then I think in the end, you just become so used to it that you kind of build up a skin, and you're just kind of impervious to
And you
anything.
often talk about not, like, blatantly not reading comments at a certain point.
It depends
like,
on what.
yeah.
Like on like my Caroline stuff, like the Scandalicious stuff, I would read all
Everything,
the comments, because
yeah.
like Jeremy said, like it was so interesting and fascinating, just like
Yeah.
while people are just like blah.
Yeah.
But like if like there was an article that was written on me recently or something that was like a serious thing, like I would not read the comments.
Yeah.
Definitely not.
Yeah, like a real
Yeah, like a real thing.
thing.
Not like an art thing. I mean, an art thing, but
At this
Like
point,
a press?
though,
Is that what you're talking about? Like comments on press? Or
yeah, like for
Yeah.
example, well, it was actually so this article on the New York Magazine, this with the interview that I just did, and like I did not want to read the comments on it, so I didn't even look. But then I found out Jerry Saltz commented on it.
Yeah, he did.
He
I
said,
saw that.
like he was like.
Should have been in the Whitney Biennial.
He's like, should have been in the
Oh,
Whitney
wow,
Biennial.
Jerry.
Good.
Yeah.
He was like, good art. Should have,
Yeah.
could have been in the Whitney
Is that
Biennial.
like, does he just do that? Like it's his version of the like button now, though? Like should have been.
Yeah, he
like,
just makes like little four
could've
word
been.
comments sometimes, like do. Yeah.
But that to
That's
say,
awesome.
like, I normally would like never look at the comments because it's like, no. They're horrible.
Yeah, but now you have the social assurance of like. Did you put that on your webpage? Jerry Salsa should have been in the Whitney Biennial.
So funny. I'm making a new website with Lee Kratzer, and I was thinking of doing that.
You got to do that.
I might still do it.
That's
you
Internet 101
screen
right
cap
there.
it, and
Yeah, that's like what they call an assurance in the biz.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll like blingy it or something.
Yeah.
Certified should have been in the.
Yeah.
Oh, but so my second question: do you see yourself ever taking yourself out of your work, or because you described earlier your method of making your work? Do you ever see not being in your work?
No.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that question. And very
Don't go.
early on, more like people ask that more often. I've experimented a few times, and it's never right actually, because the character is so integral to you. Not to the like. If I just have the software, and I released a video game called Piano Basketball. Actually,
I have it. It was in a bundle that I got. Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, LA Game Space is helping them out. But when I'm not a part of it, I think people might not understand the satire, and that's always troubled me, because there's so much stuff that there's so much real stuff out there that if I just put my face next to it, it would like totally change the meaning. That I think that it's integral, but honestly, it's a problem that I'm working on. I would love to find a way. Like I did a portrait series last year in this Kickstarter campaign. The interesting thing about that for the listeners, it was this thing called Important Portraits, and I created portraits of Kickstarter backers. But the way I rationalized that for myself was that those were just artifacts of performance documentation. They are the artifacts of the performance. The performance itself happened on Kickstarter.
Right. So you don't see, that's not a piece where you're out of the work. That's what you're saying.
No. Yeah. As long as I'm the origin story for the work in some way. But that's me kind of talking myself into it a certain way, probably. But that's important to me, that it comes from this original point of origin that's the persona.
For our listeners, if you're hearing a strange muffled voice, we're in a studio next to another studio, so anyway. Sorry, I don't know if you heard that.
It's a soothing,
yeah, it's lovely
voice.
Maybe. We have some time still. So I wanted to ask about the role of your marriage in some of your recent projects. Getting personal, and also in a way your social media presence. I'm also sometimes, and so is Anne, including our partners in our works. My partner's an artist.
Oh yeah, I did that once.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you did. It was really cute. And I feel like it's a natural extension of your kind of life work, sort of thing. My partner's not always psyched about showing up at my work, but it seems like you and your partner have a nice working relationship. And also you're very publicly open about how much you adore her, which is really sweet. So how does Kristen feel about being featured in your work so much, and how does she feel about your kind of high visibility and use of images of her in your projects and social media?
Mm-hmm. Early on, it was it's part of the contract, actually. Yeah. No, when we first met, I talked to her about it, obviously, and made sure that she was comfortable with it. But she realized when we got into a relationship, it was kind of unavoidable, because anyone that I meet, I usually tell them that they might end up a part of it. And she was really cool. She's obviously an artist. She went to the Slade in London, and she got it. And she now, really enjoys it. And so she says she's actually very cynical about the art world right now, which maybe she's not happy to hear me say on the air. Except she says, when we're working together, because it feels like we have a good cause, and we're sort of the work that we do together is separate from, what she feels is sort of the negatives surrounding the professional art world, which we don't have to, wax cynically upon. Right. But we have a lot of fun doing it, and I do adore her, and she's a real supporter of my work. And I think recently I've been using her not using her in work. That sounds horrible. We've been collaborating. She's been helping a lot, on that Kickstarter project. She has a big painting background, so we collaborated. And she gave me a lot of research and historical context for the work. And then recently I used her in this video where I turned her into a unicorn or whatever. And that video it was important for me to work with her, because we were both talking about the dialogue online about womanhood in this internet era. And the issues were so complicated that I didn't feel like I could do it on my own, that we had to work together to get it out there. And so that was a real collaboration, I think. And I had actually done the piece where I was just in it, and I did, because it was part of a residency I did in Vienna, and I just didn't like it at the end. I was like, you know what, that just didn't make sense. And then I came back to Toronto and I talked to her about it, and we just agreed that it would be cool if she was a part of it, and then we modified it and wrote a new script together and put it out.
Yeah, the script, the sort of parts about women aging and this unicorn face is an opportunity to avoid that unfortunate situation. That's a pretty woman specific. I guess that was a part of the amended script.
Yeah. Well, no, because in some ways yes and no, but the work was originally inspired by this princess in Austria named Sissi, and she was one of the first narcissists, or sort of celebrated narcissists, and was really obsessive about her appearance, and to a point of being anorexic when it was not fashionable to be anorexic, and made that the style. So you have heard about
She made it.
Thanks.
Yeah. And yet in Austria, they kind of still celebrate this woman. But ultimately, it's also a tragedy because she sort of became a prisoner of this celebrity she built around her narcissism. And so it's very much the same discussion that's happening regarding Miley Cyrus or any other, protagonist.
And selfie young woman.
Just any woman on the internet that's trying to portray herself in a way that solicits some kind of positive reaction. Yeah. Which I think we're all trying to do, right? We're in this culture where the software is asking you a question, and so it's begging a performative answer, and you're looking around for, well, how should I do this? And the things that you're seeing, are of a particular influence that might require you to show more bosom or look up at the camera or something like that.
Yeah, and the reinforcement you get is in the number of likes that you get, and that dictates the future of your contributions.
So then your behavior just becomes this performance of that routine over and over again. So we wanted to talk about that kind of stuff, and all of my work is about this sort of Marxist idea of the machine, that's using you, or you're performing for a machine. And so, women are especially sort of vulnerable in that context. I think that, the software is not designed with a gender in mind, right? Or with all of the politics that come with it. The software is just designed, like you said, to give you positive reinforcement from the network, and to get you to engage with it.
Yeah.
There's a book that web designers read by Steve Krug. It's very famous, called "Don't Make Me Think." And I always think it's quite funny that the entire, basically, internet was built on this idea of not making people think. It's the
funny.
Because that's what's intuitive, right? Intuitive software. You just know what to do.
Yeah.
Like that. And what is that, though, when it's you're
then
sharing
what's the agenda?
When you're sharing your image or your thoughts, and what would software be like that did make you think about that? So that's my thought for the day.
Make me think. So I'm going to skip to this question. So you live in Toronto, and I'm wondering if you think that you would be as successful as you are as an artist living in Toronto if it wasn't for the internet. Or do you think that there is still something missing for you living in Toronto?
I think it's a big help. I went to school in Syracuse, like you mentioned earlier, and I think when I was there, the internet helped me reach people that I couldn't have reached otherwise. If it was 1984 or something, that's a symbolic date, but 1985, it would have just, I don't know, I probably would have, had to travel very far. I did end up traveling a lot, but I would get in touch with people first by the internet, and that's still how it works. I'm still stunned by the number of curators that find me on Facebook, and then propose exhibitions that way.
They message you.
Yeah. That's
I get
it's 50% of my curatorial requests over Facebook. And, so that's interesting, I guess. So in terms of networking, it just makes it a lot easier. And then I think reaching audiences. There's no way I would reach 250,000, YouTube viewers if, I wouldn't have reached them through the film festival circuit. And I was submitting my video works to film festivals and getting them screened. But you're screening in front of
10
You know, let's be honest.
Yeah, it depends on the festival.
It depends on the festival. There's some really
50 people,
amazing. There
yeah.
are some amazing ones, like New York Underground Film Festival that used to be here in New York. I would always push hard to show in that. I showed in it several times, and there were wonderful people running it. And Ed Halter, who now does Light Industry, was running that, and that had like packed, like sold out shows every time. But that was, you know, one of the exceptions. I mean, Ann Arbor Film Festival would be another exception. Some of these older, like more established ones. But by and large, yeah, it's like 10 people in a room, kind of. And you were just sending your work off into, like, outer space.
Yeah.
Like, I wonder if someone will see this.
Yeah, DVDs. Yeah.
So the internet really made the, like the connection with an audience possible. Even if it was hate. It was, like, it was something. And the worst reaction I'm sure everyone knows, is, like, no reaction.
Yeah.
So getting some reaction, being there, like being in that space with the audience, like part of a community, and finding other internet artists actually was the most amazing thing in my life, because I was like, oh my god, I'm not alone.
I know.
Yeah.
I went through like the same exact thing. Like Parker Ito sent me an email. I was just like,
because he sent everyone.
and I was just like, oh my god, what? There's more of us?
Was that while Parker was still in school, like doing a project? Like I appeared in like his class several times.
They like Parker and Kaylin emailed me, and they thought Scandalicious was for real, and they wanted me to do like a project with them, like as Scandalicious.
So they thought they were emailing Caroline?
They thought they were emailing Caroline.
Wow,
and I was like,
that's
yeah,
amazing.
And I looked them up. I was like, oh, they're actually really interesting, and I'm really digging what they're doing. So I did this like collaboration with them, and then a year later, after I was on VH1, I like emailed them being like, surprise, that's not really me, I'm someone else. And they were like, we know, we saw you on VH1. Oh my god.
I honestly thought what Parker was doing back then was like a brilliant art, because he was just like getting in touch with every other internet artist and telling other internet artists that he had just been in touch with other internet artists. And it was so
That's
amazing.
really
So
like,
Parker.
Yeah. I wish he was still doing that, actually, because I don't hear from him as often. Maybe it's because I'm not as popular anymore. So
I think it's him.
Yeah, he's
gone through many different phases in his life.
Yeah, no, I still love Parker. He's like a very endearing guy. But I loved when he was.
He
doing
did bring everyone together, though. And I think.
He did. He's like a catalyst for sure, and he did that from like sort of his undergraduate studio class or whatever.
And it was such a funny guy. So you don't think that? Like, do you think it would help you to be in New York, or you don't even think it would make a difference?
I think it does make... I mean, I'm here right now, and, like, all week I'm just, like, meeting up with friends and stuff, and I always have such a good time. I think it does help to be in New York, in that you can network more easily. Mm-hmm. And, like, you know, if there's, like, a last-minute show... Angela invited me to a last-minute show. It was canceled.
Yeah, we announced it last week.
I hope you edited it out.
I don't remember if I did or not. I think I did.
If you know, I guess it's very common that last minute shows happen, even at an institutional or museum level. Mm-hmm. And so when you're available, people are like, "Oh, who are we gonna get? Oh, well, they're not available." That kind of stings. So the way I've gotten around that is I perform a lot via streaming and Skype, and I did that really as soon as possible, as soon as like technologically possible. It's like, oh my god, now I can do this. And I invested in like the most expensive internet connection at that time, which by today's standards it's pathetic. Anyway, so that's one of the strategies, but still not the same. Like, people still like that physical presence, and I'm sure like you guys both perform, physical performances still carry, for the artists especially, I think, like a different kind of gravitas or something. You just like the connection with the audience, and I don't know, it's more memorable in some ways. I've noticed that when I do streaming performances, it's like when I can see the audience, they're much more passive. They're halfway between consumption and activation.
Yeah.
I did one Skype performance, though, where I feel like the audience was somehow super, super generous in a way, because I was doing embarrassing shit, but there was a screen mediation. So, like, there was, like, it was the one at Transfer Girls.
They were more endearing that way.
Yeah, they were, like, really, and I was, like, kind of like, oh, this is weird. Like, we're not actually, you're laughing at me, but we're not, like... Yeah. So that was kind of nice. But...
I recently did one where people could, like, it was a recreation of Cut, and people like I was nude, and then I had like a 3D dress on, and they could like cut the shapes up by tweeting me.
Oh, that's really cool.
And I was actually really happy because people did do it because they wanted to see me naked. Or
that's a
there
good
was
idea.
a good carrot.
I like personally have like refuse to do any more Skype performances. Like, people ask me, I'm like, no.
Really? But what about in class? Like, do you go into classes? Because you're in New York,
not
you
in
can do
Skype.
that. Like,
You're
I
going to be soon. We already talked about it a little bit.
I love Skyping into classrooms.
No,
though.
I won't do
It's
it.
like Big Brother, like, hello.
I won't do
Come here
it.
to
I need
class.
that I need to, like, I feel like I'm a performer, and I just need that live thing. I just can't do. It's just like the internet's always like, it's like, oh, we can't hear you. Oh, we can't see. Oh, you're frozen. I can't. Like, I'm just
I
so
like that because
impatient.
I love the failure in my work. The awkwardness is cool.
Oh, yeah, no.
So
I'm just like, I'm so impatient. I'm like, I can't deal with this. And also, like, normally they just want to ask you to Skype in because they want you to do it for free. And I'm also, like, just increasingly like, no, not
Yeah,
doing
there's a lot of
anything
that.
for free.
anything on the internet like comes with a free price tag. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter how much of your time it takes.
Yeah,
There's been
someone,
a lot
like,
of articles on that recently.
If someone, like, paid me to do a Skype thing, yeah, I would do it. But, like, just, like, spend an hour of my time, like, Skyping random people I don't know.
Well, the first rationale for it was we can't afford transportation, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So me being in Toronto, that was like, oh, of course, I'm in Toronto. So I'll do it over Skype, sure. But I don't know, embrace the weakness, I would say. That's what...
Yeah, and like you could build in that part where you talk about how much you don't like
How
doing
awkward it is.
Skype.
But it might not be right for Anne.
I don't know. I have a.
I'll take all your Skype. Can you just
Yeah,
refer them to
like,
me?
Yeah, I'll be like,
We'll
you
take
can ask Jerry Bailey. He'll do it. He's great.
So I have been getting a lot of emails from students about them doing interviews on me for their final reviews for their classes.
Oh, that's
and then I'm a little bit like, oh, that's nice, but
I don't know.
I don't know
Anything
if I can do that every
student-related,
time.
I'm like... Because I don't know. I think it's like... It's,
pedagogical.
Well, you want to...
Yeah.
Because I reached out as a student to older artists, and I was literally stunned when they would get back in touch with me, and it changed my worldview.
Yeah.
Actually, so when a student asks me for something, I'm like, whatever it takes, okay, let's do this. You know, if I have to come, like, halfway across the country, we can make it work, we'll figure it out. They'll probably just Skype or send you an email or something like that.
I feel similarly too. Also, I think because I moved to New York, nobody knew me. I was super young, but I was like, I have venues, I have stuff, let's do stuff.
Yeah.
And like I was always working with people who were way more established and seemingly out of like my league. But I would just like write them and be like, can I, even if you can't actually come, can I just video or something? And they were often said yes. So no, I think that is important.
Yeah, and the other thing is, children are the adults of tomorrow.
Look, I know. It's not
And like, that's not my job.
No, I don't erase. Like, I think if people come to me with reasonable requests...
Well, I'll give you an example. Omar Khalif, who is just... he's now taking over as like one of the curators at Whitechapel Gallery. He first contacted me while he was a student at the RCA and asked me to work with him like on a kind of like a student project. I was introduced to him by other means, but like if I had said no, I've since worked on like several like important projects, and he's applied for grants on my behalf, and we've become best friends. He's at my wedding, kind of thing.
Aww.
But this guy went from being like this hardworking student to being like a curator at one of the more established galleries in the world. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I just like I love that those things happen, and I get to keep those relationships, and I can see a person develop over that period of time.
Look,
Really
I'm
special.
not saying I ignore
This is not
everyone.
like,
I like talk to all these people.
I know you do.
constantly.
Well, you know what? I think you
know
probably
what?
get way more requests. I probably get like maybe a couple requests a week for that kind of thing.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot.
I don't get more than a couple.
Okay.
But you just have a different like a boundary and how much you can.
I think it
take
really
on
depends
and-
on the person. It depends on the request.
Jeremy's drinking muscle milk.
I just gotta
It just depends. Like you can often discern from an email what kind of person that person is and what their interest is, and I think I just try and like say this person
Well, at a certain
is
point,
interesting
you have
to me
no,
or is
right?
not interesting to me.
I'll tell you another story though, because I love telling. How much time do we have? Do I have time to tell a
You
story?
tell a story.
Tell a story.
So for a long time, I've actually had a policy, which is the just say yes policy, which is like suicide, right? That should be the worst
I have the
advice you
same
could ever give
policy,
anyone.
generally.
But it has led me to some of the most really amazing experiences. In one case, someone asked me to burn a DVD for them, and they ended up being one of the female founders of General Idea, which is a conceptual art collective. And I was like, and then they, it turned into a collaboration, and it was like, turned out that they were working, the thing that they wanted me to help with them with was this project that it was started 30 years ago. And like, it was so inspiring to like, I made work about that and ended up collaborating with her. And her story was so fascinating because there's all these women that were a part of General Idea, but General Idea ended up being repackaged as like gay men with AIDS, and there's like no room for women in that group kind of thing. You guys don't have girlfriends, right? And if I hadn't have just said yes, I'll burn your DVD, but really, why don't we work together or something like that? I wouldn't have discovered that really interesting story of marginalization, I guess. And yeah, I don't know. So there are, of course, like ones that lead nowhere or seemingly nowhere, but
and I guess all I'm saying is I try to like.
Well, you can't do everything,
Yeah, you can't do everything, and I try to like figure out who is like doing something that I find interesting and that like I'm
and you're getting probably better.
I'm engaged in something that I'm engaged in.
You're getting better at sensing who those people are going to be.
Yeah.
Cool. Are we out of questions?
We aren't, but we're running out of time.
Yeah. Well, we're past an hour, right?
We are past an hour.
It's that time in the show where we actually just talk about how much time we spent talking.
Well, let's
By
see.
now you're all asleep.
101.
No, this is actually I started this like 7 minutes late.
Okay. So we're well over. So I guess what we should get into is, Jeremy, if you can tell people your website and maybe if you have some plugs for things that are coming up.
Sure. The holiday season's coming up. So you're all going to want to choose your gifts wisely.
Get your pets spayed and neutered.
My website is jeremybailey.net. I think the most important thing is that when I do this female new media artist art prize, that people get excited and share the news. And so I'll be... Yeah, and submit. I really, like I said, fight back the tears at jeremybailey.net. I'm trying to collect names and, so nominate. That's not official, but like the more.
Oh, it's nominations.
Yeah, well, for that thing, I was just kind of like testing. I'm like testing the waters. No, because I haven't launched an official website or brand or anything around it, but. What I am looking for right now, though, are partners, like people I can work with, because I would like it to be international, like not a local thing. And I would like it to be visible, ultimately, because I think it's an important cause. And I would like it not to be all about me. I would like to have partners that I can also highlight, and women that are leading.
And it's £1,000.
No, that's what I said, but I'm going to try and make it more money than that.
Oh my God, that's big money.
Why did I say pounds? It's like
I don't know. Why
it was specifically, because I just copied the thing, and it's definitely in pounds.
Maybe because I was in the UK at the time or something.
But £1,000, that's like $2,000.
Yeah, I think we can do better than that. But what's more important than money is attention. So I would like to connect people with audiences. So we'll see what I can do.
Well, I speak for myself, but probably also Anne, that we're very supportive, interested, and we will get the word out.
Awesome. Great. Well,
I'll tweet it.
Cool.
I'll tweet it hard.
She has lots of Twitter followers? Tweet. I don't know. I'm not great on Twitter.
Not that many.
People are still making jokes that I know about, like I don't get Twitter. It's like it's like 10 years later. But I did it. Everyone does it.
I'm just not that great.
No, because Twitter also just keeps reinventing their interface. This is going to turn into the Verge cast in a second. But they reinvent their interface constantly, and they recently just updated it without telling me on my phone. I don't understand anything anymore. It's all crazy.
Twitter.
I just don't
get your shit together.
I just don't even understand how I'm supposed to
You just have to have more conversations on it.
That's what
it's all about. Yeah. It's like a radio show.
Yeah.
All day long.
And no filter. You can't filter.
Yeah.
You
I'm
can't
getting a little bit better at that. I just say
it doesn't matter because
all the time.
Actually, this is an interesting theoretical discussion about internet art. The internet art is a stream. It's not an individual work of art. Right. And Twitter really embraces that idea. Yeah. The value of internet art is not in any individual work of art. It's in the in the collective stream. So put your hand in that stream. Yeah. See what you catch.
Just keep throwing shit out there. Yeah, not so great at that. All right, so A-Cups. We will be back again in June, I'm just assuming that Anne wants to do it again in June, but I'll be back in New York in June.
That long? That's how long we have to wait? Can I just pinch hit for this? The listeners.
Back up. You have your own famous new media.
Oh, you're good.
That's
That's good.
Yeah, I'm very impressed. I don't know. I mean, announcing stuff, normally I would be like, I'm doing this, this, and this. But yeah, I'm just going back to school. Which sucks.
I'm not doing anything. I don't want to do anything.
Wow. We're really ending on a
No,
low
but this
note
is
here.
this is art vacation time.
Yeah.
Let us have a break, for God's sake.
Yeah,
Like,
I want
always
a break.
pushing,
So
promoting. There's lots of stuff. Don't worry, guys. Like, in a
Yeah.
couple weeks, there'll be, like, a ton of stuff.
So
I want to say my app 12 was censored from the iTunes store. And everyone should know.
Why? What happened? You didn't tell me.
Oh, well, I mean, I posted on Facebook, but
Oh.
so it was up for a couple months, and then I think they finally read it. Someone read it, and they took it down because they said the content was lewd and objectionable, which I thought they would say when we first uploaded it.
Yeah.
And they never did. I think because all the text was embedded in images, so like a human would have to read it. And I think it was kind of brought to their attention, and they read it, and they're like, what the fuck? This is about a pedophile. So it is currently being censored, which sucks, but hoping to get it out in a different format in some way so people can still read it. So, yeah. I'm sure there's porn apps. Like, come on, there's definitely porn apps. There's, like, nudie photo hunt. There's, like, porn apps for sure.
I've never heard of that. Nudie photo hunt?
Oh, you don't know nudie photo hunt?
No.
Oh, it's like a bar game, you know, that you... Anyway.
Oh, no.
I mean, pedophilia is one of the big taboos.
Yeah, I'm not surprised, but still,
Well,
it's
actually,
not that bad.
in the history of art, well, I come from, in Canada, it was a big, there's a lot of history around that. But if you're interested, maybe for another time, it's part of, like, there's, like, a censorship history in Canada regarding art, but most of it revolves around pedophilia and the right to portray children's bodies nude.
Yeah.
But I wasn't doing that. It's sort of
Oh,
the
yeah.
child's perspective. That's the whole
Right.
thing, that it's from, like,
Yeah.
my perspective as the child being exploited.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's, the idea is, like, bringing awareness. It's, like, a little bit graphic in terms of, like, written stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's no graphic imagery.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Whatever.
Well, I can still bootleg it, right?
Can you? I don't know.
Yeah, like you could
If you jailbreak your phone,
like
you mean?
jailbreak your phone.
Oh, that's good to know. Yeah. Anyways, we should wrap up.
Anne Hirsch, too controversial
Too hot to
for
handle.
too hot to handle. That's it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thanks so much for coming on and talking to us.
Thank you.
Jeremy.
And thank you to the wonderful audience.
Our first self-identified male feminist. Is that correct?
Have I said that? All right.
Are you a male feminist?
I don't like to I don't think it's possible for a man to truly call themselves a feminist.
Ooh,
I think that, yeah. We
But-
talk about this a lot. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Because I think the young Jeremy Bailey used to say that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he also used to say he was queer and all this stuff. And I think that's not fair. What I am is a tremendous sympathizer, empathizer. And so I would rather be a channel for those voices than claim to be that voice. If that makes sense.
Very good answer.
Very admirable stance.
Cool.
Love
The
it.
best I can do.
Hey,
Hey, Cops!
Hey, cops!
Hey, Cops!
Hey, cops.